Hi guys, this is Dan. Huge welcome if you're new here. We are in October already, so it is the moment of truth, my mid-year check-in for the Fantasy Reddit Bingo Challenge. Should I say some squares are shining with victory, but the rest giving me some silent judgment stare. So in today's video, I won't go into the details of every prompt because I have already mentioned them twice. So what I will do instead is to share what I have already finished, which ones are still haunting my TBR and my plan before this bingo is over. So if you're doing this bingo too, or if it is your first time, don't worry, you can go visit the Reddit Fantasy Bingo site and check out that bingo board. Let's see how much progress we have made or how far behind we are. But before we formally start this video, I want to say a huge thank you to my Patreon. Without their support, it is not easy to keep this video out. I am actually in the process of starting a Discord server for my Patreon. If you want to be part of this community, make some new friends who also enjoy reading, feel free to go and check my description out because the link to my Patreon would be there. Speaking of your support, I want to say a huge thank you to those of you who watched this video because finally, after a year or so, I am part of the YouTube Partner Program. At this stage, I think I am qualified for the YouTube membership and the super thanks. Here, I would say for the YouTube membership, it is better for you to go join my Patreon because most of my perks will be around there. And super thanks, I think you can check it out how that work out. I won't mind. I don't know how that gonna work, so if you're curious to find out, you can also use that super thanks donate function. Very nice look here. I am actually under the weather, so you can really tell from my voice, it is really husky. And I may not be like so energetic as before. I hope you don't mind. I'm trying my best to push out some videos even though I'm sick. There's too much PSA now, so let's dive into this Reddit Fantasy Bingo. Same as before, I will go with every single row from the top to bottom. So the very first prompt on the first row is Knights and Paladins. Like its names, one of the protagonists has to be a knight or paladin. So I have actually completed this prompt in the first quarter with The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, because one of the protagonists is a very powerful knight with such a magical ability. You will know who I am referring to if you have finished that book. Or if I want to replace this with another book, I can actually use Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher. The male main character is a knight who lost his connection to the god. So if there are any prompts later that I need to use the devils, I can use Paladin's Grace here. Then it is Hidden Gem. Basically, you need to read a book that got less than 1,000 ratings on Goodreads. Sadly, I still haven't taken this one off yet, and I still want to use the Outcast Mage by Abigail something. Sorry, I forgot your name. I think at this moment, this book still got less than 1,000 ratings. I'm not sure is it a good thing to say or not. Please don't write anything. Don't rate this book on Goodreads. Don't pick this one up yet. Let me finish this book first. But joke aside, another book I'm not too sure here is The Sorrow of the Sea by Stephen Iron, the third book of the Nintango and the Falcon trilogy. I know that on the prompt it says that you can't use new release, but what counts as a new release here? This book was released back in May this year, but I read this in July. So does it still count a new release by the time I start reading it? And you know what? Even after 5 months this book was released, it still got less than 100 ratings on Goodreads. So I do really want to use this book here, just in case I am running out of time to read the Outcast Mage. Next, we have Published in the 80s. Like its name, you need to read a book that is published between 1980 to 1989. 1989, Taylor Swift version. I have actually completed this prompt in the last update, and I used The Magician by Raymond E. Feist. Although I DNF'd the Broken Binding edition halfway through, I still managed the first volume, The Apprentice, which is also published in the 80s. But Magician Apprentice can also be used in other prompts later. So in the future, I think I still want to check out Hyperion by Dan Simmons, which is a book published in 1981? No, 1989. Taylor Swift is still here. So there will still be some room for me to switch in between these two books. Then we have High Fashion. You need to read a book that fashion, clothing, or fiber art is important to the plot. When I read this prompt the very first time, I think it is going to be quite a challenging one, and I think there's going to be only one way to crack it, which is to read Rook and Rose by Amy Carrick. But obviously, I found another way. Not too long ago, I finished A Fragile Enchantment by Alison Saff, in which the main character is a seamstress who can inject personalities to the clothes she is making. So all the people looking at that dress can feel the same emotions. Fiber Magic easily tick this prompt off. Lastly, we have Down with the System. Basically, you need to read a book that involves the disruption to the system. Last time when I checked this prompt out, I was not too sure which book to read and it seems quite difficult. But later when I check out the recommendation on Reddit, and it seems that one book that is already on my TBR can be used here. And I am talking about Black Sun by Rebecca Ronhorst. The first book, let's see can I remember it, Between Earth and Sky trilogy? Okay, it is testing my memory from the TBR video. I think the plot is around the time of convergence where the sun, moon, earth is aligned. Then one of our main characters is like a vessel to the god during this important time of event, and there is also a priest who wanna maintain the social order by preventing the political division. Sounds like disrupting the system, right? And another choice here for me is Blood Over Bright Heaven by M.L. Wang. I think this is a new release earlier this year that I haven't checked it out yet, but I have heard a lot of positive reviews about it. I have actually pre-ordered the Broken Binding edition, which is the second printing, and I just need to wait for it to arrive in October this month, and then I can start this amazing book. I hope that I can read it before the end of the year. So for the first row, I think that I am doing quite well. Even for those that I haven't finished yet, some of the books are actually in my TBR for this month or before the end of the year. The only one I really need to tackle is The Outcast Mage. We can now move on to the second row, and the first prompt here is Impossible Places. Read a book that features or like set in a place that could break a physicist. Is it how you say it? Physicist? From the Reddit recommendation like the last time, I think I am going to pick up the Dungeon Crawler Cow series. It is like a very hype fantasy series at the moment, and I think it is like RPG inspired, in which we follow our main characters to complete different level of tasks. But here, if I want to cheat a little bit, I mean that I want to read something that is shorter, less effort. I'm actually very interested in the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. Even for me saying that I'm interested in this series, I'm not going to complete it in one bloody year. I don't want to make the same mistakes as the Wheel of Time or the Echo Saga. So if I say this series is set in a world where it is like flat and is supported by 4 elephants, crazy enough, right? And I think this series is actually quite long, at least over 40 books. But luckily, it can be further divided down into several arcs and you can start wherever you want. So I just need to pick one that seems to be popular, well received, and read the first book of it and complete this prompt. It is definitely a easier, more humorous fantasy series compared to other chunky fantasy series that I want to read. Then we have a book in parts. You need to read a book that is divided, let's say, into parts, acts, days, or years. In the last update, I completed this prompt with Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber, even though I didn't enjoy it. And funny enough, there's only 2 parts in the story. But I mean, I still get this job done. The third prompt is Gods and Pantheon. You need to read a book that features divine beings. I'm still a bit clueless about this prompt because there's no further explanation. My problem here is how much the story needs to feature a divine being so that it can be qualified. If I need to pick a book here, I think I can use Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. In the story, Alice and Peter met the Weaver Girl in Hell, and the Weaver Girl is like a Chinese celestial being. And I mean, who is in charge of Hell? Hades. Right? Then we have last in the series, like its name, I need to read the last entry of a series. In the last 5 or 6 months, I don't think I have completed any fantasy series, but by the end of the year, I hope that I can complete the Wheel of Time or the Echo Saga, so either of them can be used here. The last one here is book club / read along book. Basically, you need to find a book that has been featured in the read along for this Reddit fantasy. You can actually visit this Google Sheet and see how long it is. I think the problem is not to find a book, but find a book that you are interested in. I've done a very brief searching and I found 2 fantasy series that I am interested in, or they're part of my 2026 reading plan. I am talking about The Blade itself by Joe Abercrombie or The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. So this is a prompt that I can't finish yet, and this will be done next year. I would say the second row is not that bad, although I can only complete 2 so far. One of them can be done by the end of the year, one is like part of my 2026 TBR, and the only one left is the Dungeon Crawler card series or the Discworld. Moving on to the third row, the first prompt here is Parents Protagonist. You need to read a book that features a protagonist that got a child to take care of. I still haven't ticked this box yet. I'll stick with my original plan, which is to read The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, as it is part of my 2026 reading plan again. It is actually based on a recommendation on Reddit, and I will complete this by next year. And I mean, it is so bloody difficult to find a book that features a parent as a protagonist. Normally, you wouldn't find any books like that as a selling point. I genuinely think it is so rare to come across with a fantasy book that says, hey, we got a father as our main character in this book, or we got a mother. But never mind, I got this plan. Next, we have epistolary. You need to read a book that features any of the following: diary or journal entries, letters, messages, newspaper clippings, transcripts, etc. I still haven't completed this one yet. I feel the same as the last prompt, the parents protagonist. It is just so hard to find a fantasy book that literally advertise any of those elements. So I'll just stick with the same recommendation in the last update, which is the Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. Did I say the name right? It is honestly the time for me to check out some very popular book, and I also think that this book is not too long, so it is perfect for this reading challenge. Next, published in 2025, you need to read a book that published in 2025. This prompt is a bit tricky, should I say, because I mean this reading challenge starts in April this year, right? And it ends in April next year. So this prompt only limits books to be published in 2025, not 2026. But don't worry, I got you covered here. Earlier, I tried to replace Paladin's Grace to the Devils, so I can free up the Devils to this prompt, and the Devils is a new release in May 2025. Also, The Art of Legends by Wesley Chu is on my October's TBR, and it is a new release in late August this year. I mean, also we have just talked about Catabasis, a new release also back in August, so plenty to choose from. Then we have Author of Color. You need to read a book that is written by a person of color. This one I have completed last time, and I used a Tempest of Tea, and I think the author is a Sri Lankan and Arab descendant. The last prompt here is small press or self-published. You need to read a book that is not printed by the Big Five or just self-published. Here, I think if I can free up the Echo Saga, I'll use it here because it is published by the Quintro Publishing. I know that there are still quite a lot of empty spaces, but I mean the Bloodsworn Saga is part of my 2026 reading plan. The only one I really need to think about when to read it is the Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. So moving down to the fourth row, the first prompt here is biopunk. You need to read a book that features or centers biotechnology and or its consequences. Same as last time, I'm going to use A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett because the middle chunk of the story is about our characters exploring the consequences of the biotechnology. Then we have elves and or dwarves. You need to read a book that features the classic fantasy archetype of elves or dwarves. My original plan is same as the published in the 80s to read Hyperion so that I can free up The Magician by Raymond E. Weiss, because in that book, even in the first volume, we got quite a lot of elves to see. And very obviously, I haven't checked out Hyperion yet, so I really need to work on it. The third prompt here is LGBTQIA+ protagonist. You need to read a book that our main characters fall under this umbrella. My plan from the last update is to use the Sorrow of the Sea, but I think this book can be also used in either new release or the hidden gem. In The Sorrow of the Sea, one of the protagonists fall under this LGBTQIA plus umbrella. Just in case I really want to use The Sorrow of the Sea in any other prompts and I need to come up with a new one, then I will probably choose The Mask of Mirror by M.A. Carrick, the first book of the Rook and Rose series. I think you're quite tired of me repeating it already, but Rook and Rose is also part of my 2026 reading plan, a series that I plan to finish by next year. And very obviously, I couldn't start this series yet, so I don't really know about the main characters. But I did look up on Goodreads and I saw the tag LGBT for this book, so I assume this book can be used for this prompt. The next prompt is still haunting me, 5 SFF short stories. Any short SFF stories so long as you got 5 of them. The reason why I still say it's haunting me because it is honestly so hard to come up with a book that features short stories. At least they are not my go-to. On the positive side, I can really say these sort of reading challenges really push me out of my comfort zone. Otherwise, I don't see myself to read any short stories unless they are like part of the Cosmere. Speaking of, can I really use the Brandon Sanderson one? Did they got 5 short stories in there? What is it called? Alchemy Unbound, something like that. Okay, don't worry, it was like an instant thought. If I can't use that book by Brandon Sanderson, I would still love to check out the Curse Bunny by Bora Jung, a translated horror short story collection. Very luckily, that book is not that long, so I don't think I need to spend too much time on this prompt. Lastly, we have Stranger in a Strange Land. You need to read a book that deals with a foreigner in a new culture. So thanks to one of you guys, you helped me massively here. Otherwise, I'll still be confused what to read for this prompt. The book I used here is Breath of the Dragon by Shannon and Fonda. It is a YA martial art inspired fantasy where our main character is exiled from his home and he has to move on to live in a foreign land. The lesson I have learned from this role is I really have to step my game up, finish Hyperion ASAP so that I can plan the TBR for this bingo better. Very quickly, we're down to the last row and the first prompt here is recycle a bingo square. You need to use a bingo square from any of other years so long as it doesn't clash with the existing one. I actually finished this one in the last update because one of the prompts in the 2024 one immediately caught my attention. It is called Criminal. Like its name, you need to find a book that features a criminal. It can be an assassin, it can be a thief, or it can be a con artist. And the book I used here is Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. One of the protagonists is actually a... Who are you? He was a bandit before joining the main group. So this prompt actually gives you quite a lot of flexibility and I don't really think it is a difficult one. Next, we have Cozy SFF. How to define cozy is really up to you, but at least you need to have like happy ending, relatable character, or minimal conflict. When I read this prompt, a book quickly flashed in my mind. It is a very classic example of cozy fantasy, and I am talking about Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Obviously, it is a cozy fantasy and everyone would agree with it, so it can be easily fit here. And I honestly just picked this one up for this particular prompt. But did I enjoy this hype book 3 years ago? Wow. Time flies. You can check out my September wrap-up to find the answer. Next, we have generic title. You need to read a book that got at least one of these works in its title. Blood, Bone, Broken, Caught, Dark, Shadow, Song, Sword, or Throne. I really don't know about this one. It is so hard. It's like, honestly, this verse is like dodging from a TBR. When you think it is generic, you think it is easy, right? It is not. I checked all the books that I have read since April when this bingo was announced. None fit here. So if I'm going to check out Blood Over Bright Heaven by ML1 in the future, it can be used here because I mean blood. And if I decide to keep on reading the Sun Eater series, only if, and it is a big if, I can use the second book, Howling Dark. dark. So hopefully I can get it done by the end of the year. And I hope I'll use Blood Over Bright Heaven, not the Sun Eater series. I don't really like it. The description for the next prompt is quite long. It is called Not a Book. Essentially, you need to find a hobby that features SFF element, but not in a book format. And of course, not audiobook. In the last update, I have said I already completed this one because I use gaming. I played a very old Facebook game and of course not playing it on Facebook anymore, and it is called Unlight. And I mean, we are not too long left until the release of a new Pokemon game, Pokemon Legends Z2A. So I can also use that game here. Yeah, in case you don't know, I'm also a huge Pokemon fan. The last prompt on this Reddit Fantasy Bingo is Pirates, where our main characters has to be engaged in piracy. This prompt is still not finished yet, but I'm still intended to use the first book of the Murderball Diaries, or System Red here. The reason is pretty simple because the first book is really short, less than 200 pages. But joke aside, more importantly, I have heard quite a lot of positive reviews about this whole series. So that is pretty much my half-year check-in for the Reddit Fantasy Bingo. I have made some solid progress and left some tricky prompt. I still got quite a lot of time to panic before this bingo is over. I mean, it is next April. So all the books I still need to tackle are Hyperion, Black Sun, Blood Over Bright Heaven, Dungeon Chronicle or Discworld, First Law or Farseer, The Shadow of the Gods, Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries, The Art of Legends, Mask of Mirrors, Curse Bunny, Howling Dark. I don't think I did add Howling Dark right. Or System Red. So I still got more or less half a year to catch up with this fantasy bingo. Some of the books I plan to read next year anyway. Let's say The Mask of Mirrors, The Blade itself, and The Shadow of the Gods. And some luckily are relatively shorter. Let's say The Discworld, let's say Curse Bunny, and then all System Red. And if we are counting any books that are not on any form of my TBR, and we have got 6 of them. Not too much, right? Finish one book every month. I hope I didn't jinx myself here. So thank you for watching, guys. If you don't want to miss any fantasy TBR, wrap-up, reading vlog, or fun idea like this one, a check-in for a reading challenge, make sure you have subscribed to my channel and like this video. I'll see you all real soon. Goodbye.